You are listening to Stories from the Field by the Institute for Education Innovation, hosted by me, Doug Roberts. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Stories from the Field, IEI's Superintendent Podcast. This is Doug Roberts. I'm your host. Really honored to be here with Dr. Deidre Parish, the Superintendent of Amarillo ISD. How you doing today, Deidre?
Doing very well, Doug. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for coming on. You have a really interesting backstory to how you ended up in this seat. And if we could, I'd love to start with your origin story. And for those listening not aware, Dr. Parish has been in Amarillo now since February of 25.
Yeah, March.
Yeah. We're talking here in August. So
yes,
I'm sure you're drinking from a fire hose, and I want to hear a little bit more about that. But let's to me, people who step up to lead school districts and the ones I've gotten to know through my experience with IEI are heroic folks. So like any superhero, I'm sure you've got a backstory. So tell us what drove you to public education and what has you sitting in this seat, please.
Okay, absolutely. So my grandfather was a superintendent. He was one of my favorite people always. My dad was a teacher, and so he had a huge impact on my life. My mother-in-law, turns out, is a librarian. My sister's a teacher. Both of my daughters are teachers. So education is part of my life. When I started tech, I went to Texas Tech in Lubbock, and I was pre-med. Biology was my interest. And I went through an undergraduate and graduate degree and ended up teaching in middle school on a post-bac. So I had to go back and get a teaching certificate, and taught at a middle school for 2 years and absolutely loved it. Taught 8th grade math, 8th grade science, and 7th and 8th grade physics. So a great time. But then my husband got a job in Dallas, so we moved, and I started a PhD in biochemistry at the University of North Texas. And it was at that time that he decided he would go back for his as well. So we both went back to tech, did our PhDs. Mine's in biology, his is in mechanical engineering. And I was doing a postdoc at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. And I was at a cancer prevention seminar when they were talking about what public education needed to do. So they were more or less saying, we're going to tell them, what they need to do, what they need to say in order to promote cancer prevention. And while I was sitting there, I thought, you know what? I am on the wrong side of this. I need to be back in public education. So it was at that moment that I went back to Houston, applied at Frisco ISD. Frisco ISD hired me to teach AP biology, all levels of biology, really. And from that point on, I just found the calling and went through and did another doctorate in education administration. So I went through the levels of campus administration, ended up 10 years in curriculum and instruction. So that's really my background and my love is curriculum and teaching and learning.
Yeah.
And then, because that's truly our purpose. And then was an assistant superintendent, and then had my first superintendent job in Deidre, Texas, which is up in the furthest northeast corner of the Texas Panhandle.
Okay.
Had 150 kids pre-K through 12. So even though I had done middle and high school, I now was principal superintendent of, pre-K all the way through 12th graders. And it was a wonderful experience, a great learning experience. And from there, I went to Sweetwater, and Sweetwater was a 4A. So we had one big high school, and we ended up missing the 4A mark by 22 kids. So was there for 3 years. We were 3A. And then now I'm back to the large district size. We have about 29,000 kids here in Amarillo, Texas. And I love what I do each and every day. And I think we have the biggest impact, not only on the kids of Amarillo ISD, but on the future of our country.
Yeah. Well, great. Appreciate you stepping up. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Just a quick housekeeping question for those of us who follow it but don't live there. Up in that northern panhandle, Are we tech? Are we OU? Are we Texas? How does all that work?
Okay. So you're talking to someone that's Texas Tech. So I was born and raised in Lubbock. So I'm very much Texas Tech. Here in Amarillo, we also have WT-A&M, which is West Texas A&M. Right. So they have a branch that's in Canyon, pretty close to here.
Yeah.
I think it depends on
the SEC, though. I mean.
Yeah. Well, I have a daughter that went to UT. So you kind of have to weigh that in there. Yeah. But I would say most of the OSU is pretty popular with panhandle people just because drive, it's pretty close that way. But it's, it just depends on who you talk to. How about that?
Good. Yeah. So I think it's interesting your experience going into the healthcare side. And to some extent, I started IEI because I was in a bunch of rooms listening to investors tell schools what they should and shouldn't do. And I'm kind of like, why don't you invest in tools that understand how our schools work? And that's sort of our goal. So I connect with that. How has that sort of played out for you as a leader? How has it played out for you, sort of kind of understanding that perspective that you experienced when you were potentially going to pursue a medical career, and how does that play out for you in your leadership?
Yeah. Well, and I'm very grateful for my background. One, because going into science and going into, even PhD, you learn collaboration, right? It's all about networking. I don't have to be a statistics expert because I can go down the hallway to my professor friend and he can be my statistic expert. And so you learn to collaborate, put everybody's name on the paper, right? That's how you work, because my expertise was in cytogenetics and chromosomes. So that's what I knew. So taking that then as a graduate student, learning how to do that and depend on others, and as field work as well, right? You have that collaboration when you're doing the field work and collecting the specimen. So then going to a research institution such as MD Anderson, and you're talking about a different level of competition. So, you were competing with your next door neighbor for the available funds, right, for cancer research. So when you ask me what that background, so I'm thankful for that background because it took me to biology, because I always said I wanted to learn how things tick and how, what things, how we move forward with life, right? But then going into that intense medical area and realizing that I prefer the collaboration rather than the next door, competing with my neighbor. So that really is what brought me back to education, because I truly believe we have to collaborate, not only within the district, within the departments, within campuses, but with the community. We are so interdependent, when you talk about that biology term, but we are so interdependent with the community. Right now, I'm working with the city, with the police department, with the Chamber of Commerce, with Economic Development Council. All of these pieces are so important, not only to educate our children and to grow our children, but to build and grow that community, so that if our children do, attend university somewhere else, that they choose to come back because of the atmosphere and the field that we've created together.
Is Amarillo kind of like a big small town, or does it have that kind of small town feel just by being a larger city?
Absolutely. In fact, it's probably one of the most friendliest place. It's the friendliest place you'll ever visit. People are so helpful and just want to do what's best. And so it's it's very much of a small town. It's a big town with a small town feel.
Yeah. We just finished our summer summit a couple of weeks ago, and we had superintendents working on the theme of it was building our brand and claiming our narrative. Because people can say whatever they want, but if we tell our own story, it's going to be the story that we're actually working on. What would you say is the brand of Amarillo ISD to the community and family? And what initiatives have you put together around all that work?
Well, thank you for asking that, because that was one of the things that I feel that I'm bringing to this district. We have always, and I'm going to say we as in Amarillo, and yes, I've only been here since March. I have 5 months on Monday, but we've always just kind of, because we are the biggest, then we should have that dictates our place, right? And with that, you don't feel the need to promote and to market what you do. So I'm right along with you, because one, I feel like in public education, we do not promote ourselves in what we do well at all. And so one of the things that I've tasked my group with is how are we promoting, how are we marketing everything we do for children every single day? Because, even the smallest thing, we need to tell our story. We need to make sure that people understand how important public education is, and what we do for children, and what we do for the community, and what we do as teachers. I think that's one of the major things that we do to hurt ourselves in our profession is we don't encourage and we don't brag about the things we do in public education as teachers. They come to us, they're hungry, they need attention, they need someone to care for them. And we do all of that and provide learning opportunities and provide experiences to learn. And so we do have to market. So when you ask what our campaign is, the campaign that was here when I arrived, we've just embellished and moved it forward, is more there's more in Amarillo ISD. So all of our billboards, all of our radio spots, all of our videos that we shoot, all of our, has that. There's more. There's more in Amarillo ISD.
I mean, you just said a couple of things that are pretty much outliers for a lot of districts. Billboards, radio ads.
Right.
So you're a district that's actively putting messages out there. I know you're in a pretty competitive school choice environment, right? Yeah.
It was one of the things I noticed when I arrived is we have a highway, we two highways that run through town. And so there would be other schools that were promoting and marketing, but we didn't have an answer. So I don't say I don't want them to, because I don't think that's it either. But I think if they have something to share, so do we.
Right.
So where's our answer? And I'm a huge local radio person. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear what they're saying. I'm going to hear what the question is for the day. And so when I would hear things, I would ask my communications director, I heard this today. Where's our spot? Where's our answer? And we've done that. And it has just been, we've had coaches like go on and just do the real energetic, enthusiastic spot for Amarillo ISD. And we have to do that. We have to have a voice. Just like you said, we have to tell the narrative. We have to establish that.
I mean, most of the soups I know are trying to get a social media game going and all of that. It's interesting and something that I think we'll take back and want to think about. The old school media is still out there, and
when you think about your voters,
right.
We're in a time that we have to have that voter support if we're going to do any kind of bond election.
Right.
If you have to ask yourself who's voting.
Yeah.
And how do they receive their communication? They're watching the news, right? They still watch the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it depends on your community and your town. When you're the largest district in the sort of market, the media market, then you can probably get into that's very good thought. Appreciate that. So I noticed that looks like you're doing okay budget wise based on the news coverage, but you're having to make a couple of tough decisions. Was this something that got sort of left for you to figure out, or was this in motion before you got there?
So it was in motion. They had already announced the closure of the 3 schools. So when I arrived, we had 55, and we closed 3 of our elementary schools.
That's so hard.
It was and it's still hard. So I would say that I've come in on the tail of things, yes, but I've also come in on the people have had time to digest, and now they're really speaking out. So yes, they had done most of the process that they went through like a couple of years ago. So they started it, had the town hall meetings, looked at all the data. So we're landlocked. We're surrounded by 3 or 4 other districts. So we're landlocked. Our birth rate is low. The housing market is a little high, for starter families. And so just all of these things contribute to a lower enrollment is what we have. Yep. And so as you look at the areas with that low enrollment, we had to consider, people think, well, you're going to save that money. Yes, we're going to save the money, but that allows us to go and invest it in something that needs attention. When you think about, if you have, and I'm just saying, if you have 7 children, well, that's 7 pairs of shoes you have to buy. Compared if you have 3 children, those are 3 pairs. And so perhaps you take that money, for 7 and you just buy a more expensive pair of shoes. You know what I mean? So it's still, we need the money. It wasn't that there are other places that need funding, right? That haven't had the repairs that that's needed or things like that. So I think when people look at it, they think, oh, they closed the money or they closed those and they're saving the money. Yes, but we also have this need over here that we haven't been able to repair or fix because we've been so thinly spread. So we're trying to communicate that.
The declining enrollment is a national trend. I would say 90% of districts are experiencing it,
right?
Or at least flat to declining, right? There's some that are growing, but it's a hard thing to do. And kudos to your predecessor for getting the process started, because I've known of some soups who step in and all of a sudden they got to solve, the can's been kicked and they got to fix it. So I wish you all the best. I know it can be very painful for families and the whole community to see a a
Right.
beloved school close. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you.
sounds like you're getting through. And
Yeah.
it's also interesting. So we've had a member here who was superintendent for 40 years, and that person just retired, and
Mhm.
someone new stepped in, and we want to be there to help. But what's it like to to come in after somebody had such a long tenure? It seems like you was a beloved person in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the first rules they say: never follow someone that was beloved, because you're either short lived, kind of make it very long. I would just say this community has been very open and receptive. We have done things a little bit differently. For example, rather than having a sit down convocation where we invite a speaker, we had a Fem Fest. We had a festival on Wednesday. So teachers came back a week ago. New teachers came back on Monday. The returning teachers came back on Tuesday. But on Wednesday morning, we had a festival. We had all 4,000 employees that are on contract out at our stadium. We had activities. We had live music. We had a band made up completely of our own staff members.
Uh-huh.
We had vendors. We had food. Really a bingo game, because you always have bingo at a family reunion. But the idea being, let's gather, let's build community, let's celebrate, and provide a place for people to belong. We need to establish that. So I think, yes, I followed someone that had been here a long time, but I've also tried to say, I'm new here, but I want to belong. I want to be a part of this family, and I want to make sure that you do too, right?
Yeah.
And that
Right.
we're going to move forward together. And so that was pretty much the message that I brought in. And the team is outstanding. Like I said, there's just wonderful people here. And the team that I have, and the campus principals, and just all the staff have just been absolutely amazing and very warm and welcoming to me.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah.
What's sort of what's on the top of your mind as a place where you feel you want to push for innovation? What's an area of the work where you think you might be able to have a real impact in either trying something new or applying a new solution to an old challenge? Where are you looking to kind of invent a little bit?
So we are kind of refocusing on curriculum and instruction. And to me, alignment of that curriculum is so important. So even though we're a very large district, we need to focus on making sure. So another thing about us is we're a district they can choose. Parents can choose where they go.
Oh, yeah. No
So
attendance.
if we have students that go, choose this elementary, but then choose to go across town next time, or middle schools or high schools,
Would you transport them?
if they're choosing to go to their own school, like their neighborhood school, yes. But if they're choosing, to go across town to one that's not, then they have to they have to transport themselves to get there.
Which-
But they still have that option.
Yeah.
And so innovation is an interest. You think innovation as the CTE Center, and we have a fantastic career technology education that offers things from carpentry to medical health, health sciences to culinary. So we have all of that. But for me, truly making sure that our children are educated and have every opportunity to learn, I've really focused on that alignment piece. And what are we doing to make sure that they get that year's growth, and that they're ready for the next grade, and that they are mastering the content that they're required to learn? And so how does that then translate to professional learning for adults? Is I'm a huge proponent of, if adults are learning, the children are learning. If
Sure.
adults are having fun, the children will have fun. So we have to establish that. So that was what FanFest was for, to establish the fun. How are we taking that into the classroom? And then how are we making sure that each of our children reaches that year's worth of growth every year? And it doesn't start just the testing year, right? It starts when they come to us as babies, and we have to build on that every single year. So that's something new for us, and being intentional about it. So we're making sure, they just came out with no cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of people
statewide?
Yes, statewide.
Statewide? Yeah.
And so a lot of people think devices means innovation. Well, we're having to be innovative and engage students in learning in different ways. No longer can they have their cell phones. Yes, we'll still use Chromebooks. We'll still do those things. But I even think, as you talk about engaging students in learning, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so designing learning experiences is one of our focuses. And so we're moving forward with that.
One of the things I find is all the soups I know, there are numbers that they focus on. There are metrics that they're looking at, that they're looking to try to, to show if what they're doing is working. What are some of the metrics you're going to be looking at this year to track the district's progress?
So middle school, we always have some middle school. You seem to, kind of dips when they go to middle school. And so we're really focusing on that alignment piece. We've got a very strong elementary curriculum. And so what does that mean moving forward into middle school? And so we're going to look at our math scores and our ELAR scores and see where are they as we truly align the curriculum, focus on student growth. And so those middle school years are very telling.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a middle schooler myself. So
yes.
we're watching that on our daughter. Yeah.
But, also extracurricular involvement. So when we talk about more in Amarillo, we have fifth grade symphonies. So they can start playing stringed instruments in fifth grade. We have dance programs, the only dance program in the area. We've got, marching bands. We've got all the fine arts pieces, that are important too, as well as, of course, athletics and all the other events. But what does participation look like? If we can get them off a device, if we can have them talking to their neighbor, because collaboration occurs in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
And
right.
so what does that look like? So I think measuring that and measuring participation in our extracurricular activities will be important as well.
Right. Shows sort of engagement with school, generally speaking.
Right.
And it fits the kickoff with FanFest. I'm following the theme here. Pretty
neat.
Yes. So pursuant to that, then I'm curious, we hear a lot. I mean, the statistics right now about the competitive job market. This is not a job where you can work at home 3 days a week. We're never going to be that, right?
Great.
How are you managing with staff recruitment, retention, and what strategies are you working on there to make it a place where people want to work for a long time?
Well, salary is one of ours, so we're the highest paying district. I mean, besides,
I saw you just gave a raise.
Yes, and so that also came from the state. The state, we're very appreciative to the legislature this year. They awarded, I would say, or they put it in the budget. How about that? They put it in the budget for, teachers to receive a certain amount of raises. And so that, of course, will happen.
And you don't have to fund that. That comes from state money?
Yes. Well, they're adding it to the money that we get. So,
great.
Yes. Another thing that they're doing as an incentive is we have what's called teacher incentive allotment.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher incentive allotment is based on T-test, so the evaluation system, the evaluation instrument, but also student growth. And so they've put more money into that and we are a TA, so you had to choose as a district to join because you have to come up with your plan, you have to come up with your measures, and, collect the data, all of that good stuff. So we are also a TIA district.
Okay.
So you have to look at benefits. What benefits do you offer? And all of that, we have another thing they did is the state decided that we should offer 3-4 daycare, childcare, but all pre-K to 3 and 4 year olds. And so to all employees for free.
Wow.
So that's also, we report that to the state and they're supposed to reimburse us for that. But of course, even in a district, we were offering childcare because that's a huge recruitment retainment tool is childcare. So we're doing that. But even with all of that, so going back to FanFest again, we want people to belong. We want people to want to be a part. We want people to say, I want to work in Amarillo ISD because of the support that I receive, because of the professional learning that's offered to me, because of the support systems that are in place not only on campus, but at the district level. So I think as a teacher and as a person in education, yes, of course, we want more money. We want to be able to live. We want to be able to, survive and pay for shoes, right? We want all of those. Yeah. But I also want a place that I want to go to work. I want a principal that believes in me. I want a principal that supports me when I'm struggling, with a child. Because there are so many other facets to the work that we do that we as Amarillo ISD needs to be aware of those and to offer those and make sure that we're supporting those needs as well.
Great. Well, it all sounds great, and I wish you luck with it.
Thank you.
It's interesting. We've had a bunch of, in fact, we were sharing at the summer summit. People were talking about how they've had to self-fund with the district funds childcare, and had to get the community to support it and get a board to support it. But those kinds of things can be game changers. So good luck, and good for the state of Texas for helping you support it. Was there any controversy around this kind of incentive program? Like, was it just easy peasy, or were there people who were uncomfortable with it?
Well, so the way it was stated was we had to offer it for 3 and 4-year-olds if it was already offered in the district.
Mm-hmm.
So you have one, if indeed they were offering it, they were full. So that means we were having to, what if we don't have enough staff? What if we don't have enough space? What if we don't have to offer this to our employees as well? And then you think about smaller districts that didn't offer these things, and now they're having to. So really, when you ask what was the other side, the other side really was just the implementation of it, because it was such a fast turnaround. They just finished with that in June, and we're going to start that, when school begins in August.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
And so there was it created a lot of angst, just anxiety of what is that going to look like for us? What is that? So for us, it was making sure that we offered it fairly. So the law came back that we had to offer it for teachers. Well, that's great. Absolutely, we want to offer it for our teachers, but we have a lot of other employees that have 3 and 4-year-olds as well. So how can we also support them? Because we need them. We need we need the support staff. We need the administrators, right? Because they weren't included.
Custodians.
So we need everyone to stay and benefit from this. So for us, it was figuring out space, teachers, and making sure we could offer it so that it was an incentive for all of our employees.
Yeah. Good. That's great. One thing we talk about, I heard you talk about belonging and feeling included. And, we know that mental health challenges with our kids are on the rise. And there's been some concern about kind of federal funding getting reduced and how that impacts, where are you all with your mental health services, and are you doing a lot of those through partnership or staff? Are you able to keep people? Where's the district on that journey to make sure that kids have access to the help they need?
Well, I think the answer is we could always do more. We would love to do more, right? The limitations that we have in Texas are there's not enough beds. Like when you do have those extreme cases, that we really don't have the support outside of the school system, that can allow us to perhaps offer the true services that some of our students need. But in Amarillo ISD, we do a great job. We've got a huge, we have a great counseling department. They reach out with all of those resources that you mentioned, whether it's through telehealth or the different ways. We have behavior management people that's their focus. So I would say we use our resources well. But as always, could we do more? Yes, and it's one of those that it is so prevalent, right? It is so prevalent, and oftentimes it goes, that we didn't know, So it's making sure you have those communication lines. It's making sure you have ways and you build those relationships so that students will talk to a teacher, will talk to an administrator. That's where it starts. If they have that one person that they'll go and talk to, if they have that one person they'll confide in, if they have that one person that sees, him or her. So it's at all levels that we really have to address that. And I think we do a great job.
Yeah. And isn't there also something that everybody can sort of chip in? Isn't there sort of, if everybody's keyed into this is a thing that we now have to really worry about? Because, we talked earlier about marketing and all that stuff. No one taught us that in ed school. They certainly didn't teach us much about like how to provide mental health, but we've got more and more access to services and professionals and tools for this. And I've just seen as a group, educators have become much more keyed into at least just looking out for this stuff with kids, right?
And I think, yes, exactly. And I think we pick up on things like even doing compliance trainings that we all have to do at the beginning of the year. They've become even more, I think, specific in listen for these words, look for these clues, look, that we're more in tune to what to look for, what the signs, and if you don't look for those, I think that's when you might miss somebody. But I
Yeah.
do feel like that awareness is there. And as long as we implement what we know to do, then hopefully we'll get this, we'll serve the students that need the
Yeah.
most.
One of the things we talk about a lot is just having a community, a network of mentors, and then paying that forward to others. Can you talk a little bit about who've been some, you don't have to name names unless you want to, but some mentors that reached out and helped you realize you could actually step into a bigger role. You could step into a next that leads you now to being superintendent of one of the largest districts in Texas. Like,
Right.
what was that like for you? And how did it, how did people reach out to you and let you know that you had more to give?
So, and that's been an interesting journey as well, because I would say, one, it started with my grandfather. My grandfather was always a huge advocate and always, believed in what I could do. And I'm sure saw
That's
a
cool.
lot of what he liked, in me as well, or what made him such a good, superintendent.
Yeah.
But then as a graduate student, I had a really fantastic graduate professor that always encouraged me to network. Networking is huge. And if you don't really understand that, then I think you miss out on a lot early on. So from just, I take the opportunity, and he would do that for me, is introducing me to other people. You need to know this person. She's an expert in this. You need to know this person. We're going to partner with this person. And so that was just the way we worked. And so that networking piece was very evident then. And then I would say through those, the people that I worked with in Frisco ISD, anybody, the boss that I had, the director of school improvement, always encouraged me. Are you interested in this role? Then you need to go for this role. And again, it's that, yes, it's that encouragement, but it's also that support that they're going to go and help you. They're going to say good things. They're going to write that recommendation letter. They're going to support your goals of moving forward. And I think that's key too, is making sure that they know your goals and that they are aware that, yes, I love what I do, but I'm ready to move forward a little bit. And also, so the most recent thing I would say is when you say getting to Amarillo, I was part of the AASA, and this is why I asked earlier, AASA Urban Superintendent Cohort from USC. Yes.
Yeah.
In the Rossier School. And so I had a mentor from that program that she asked me on our first meeting. She said, what is your goal? And I said, I think I'm ready for a bigger district. And she said, then that's what we'll work on. And so just, you talk about a mentor and together, she said, what's our goal? This was our goal. And that's what we did. And she helped me from looking at my resume and introduction letters to interview questions. And so I think that mentorship at all levels is important. Another key, though, is as I was in different roles, I would identify those that were experts in their area. So an expert in fine arts, an expert in math, an expert, so that you're building that network, because that network carries you as well. Because as you get to, if you need to know something, you have someone to call and you have someone to reference. And so I would say just networking throughout the years, and then really explaining your goals, addressing your goals, and having those that work with you through them is what makes it all work.
Yeah. And then I always try to remind myself, because when you get busy, you got to take that meeting with that next one up who's, wanting to pick your brain, the pick your brain meeting. Right.
Yes.
I try to always make time for that, because you never know when you're going to unlock something for somebody. And it's
Right.
kind of, we got handed this, so we should, pay it forward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And which is, which can be hard to do sort of structurally. I'm just, is that something you think about, just sort of with all the leaders you've got in your system, ways for them to, how do you got to make sure all the kids learn, you got to make sure everyone is safe. But like, you also have to make sure the adults are learning. And what does that look like, beyond FamFest, and, what does professional learning look like in the district?
Right. So intentional. We have to be very intentional about what we're offering so that we're all moving in the same direction. One of the things you see when you talk about professional learning is just the, random. Oh, I'm going to go take this because it's offered on Thursday at 2:00, and that's a good time for me. So we need to be very intentional about what we're doing. It needs to be ongoing. So it's not just a one time and you get everything, but rather, how are we going to follow through with this? So it's a one time, but then we're going to meet again. How does it go for you so that there's a follow up, there's an accountability, and then it's social. Professional learning has to be social. You have to be there with a friend. If you're just there by yourself, there's really no one to talk to, no one to, again, hold you accountable for actually implementing something that you learned. So all of those things, when you talk about as a team or as a district, that's what we're going to focus on. But when you talk about me and how I grow my leaders around me, is one, in including them in the conversations. What decisions do we need to make? How can we think through that? What are some options? My way is one way. It's not the only way. But let's talk about ways. Let's talk about things, how we can make this happen. But also they need to, I model my thinking. So when I have a conversation like with someone that says, I want to move into this role, or I want to be a superintendent someday. Great. Let me, talk about, let's be my thinking partner. Let's talk through this together. But then I'm going to let you know kind of, this is where I am. These are the things that I'm considering. These are the things that you need to think about. And so it's more of a modeling through that thinking partner kind of environment. But I've had several, I guess I like to say, I have at least 5 that I've worked with that are now superintendents. And the idea being, they need that same encouragement. You can do this. You've got great ideas. Your expertise, is in a variety of areas. You can do this. And sometimes they just need that I believe in you. I believe in you. Yeah.
Find me a leader who's never had imposter syndrome, and I'll show you a liar. I mean, we all get it, and it's part of it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you just sort of being vulnerable and talking about it. Yeah. But you seem just real happy, real glad you made this move, huh? 5 months in, feeling good.
Yes.
Is there any? Do you have any strategies you use for kind of maintaining your own kind of taking care of you, wellness and stress management? Anything that you have, routines or anything that you do to get through?
So every morning I either walk, jog, or yoga. So I've done yoga for several years now, and it's just a way to ground yourself and breathe. And so yoga is a big part. And also my husband works; he travels, and so he's Dallas and has some plants in Vietnam. So that's just part of working through daily life. But we have a dog. Charlie is our golden retriever. And so Charlie is our little, piece of joy, and he goes on the walks and the jogs with me. And so I think all of those pieces, and then of course, your church family is important, making sure your family, we have 2 girls, so 28 and 26. And so just making sure that and they both teach. And so and they're both married. So we're very pleased and proud. We've had 2 weddings in the last 3 years, I think. So but just, maintaining that communication is important. That support system is what helps us every day.
Anything you're reading, listening to, watching that you want to share with colleagues that's just helping you kind of understand the world and your job a little better?
Well, I can tell you the one that kind of brought the belonging. In the AASA, one of the cohort meetings that we had, they brought up the book Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity by Cobb and Crownapple.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, so when I came, my message was, belonging, celebration, and designing learning experiences. And those were the 3 things that somebody told me it was my elevator speech. And it is. That's my elevator speech. And I really like that book. It talked about diversity and equity is the premise of the book. But the idea to me is that belonging applies to everyone. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the environment or work or home. It's that piece, but it's how you treat each other that matters. And so I really appreciated the message of that book, and I've taken it with me and in my message as well.
That's great. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Last question. How does, we have districts of all sizes in this group and from all parts of the country, but how do you manage? You probably have like 5 high school football games you got to start going to on Friday night, right? How do you figure that out?
So we're all in the same district. And so when they play each other, so I've been given a little bit of advice on that as well. So I go to the one that's here. We have games on Thursday nights and Friday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And so you attend the one that's here, probably not going to out of town games as much.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
But attend the ones here at the stadium. And oftentimes it's two of our teams playing each other. Not always, but that way. Yeah. I think the challenge for me will be what color to wear.
Right. Yeah, like purple and green on the same. Yeah, right.
That's right. Yes. So just being very careful and intentional about, not showing any favoritism, but yet be there to support our students and our coaches for sure.
That's great. Well, I hope you have a great season for all those kids on that field, and I hope you have a great year in the district. And maybe just let's close out with anybody who's, I know you've been a superintendent for a while, but you just made a pretty big leap to a much more complex system. And how about like let's share why that's a great move if you have the opportunity to do it. Why you're glad you made the leap. I'd love to hear just sort of some words of advice to others who are potentially considering taking a big step in their careers.
So for me, the big leap was about using my strengths. So in a small district, you're very much involved in the everyday detail. I mean, I was even accounts payable and receivable at one point. So I was doing everything. So my advice would be, what are your strengths? What do you enjoy doing the most? Because my strengths are more in strategy and more in the taking something good and making it even better. So, and using the strengths of others around me. So what's great for me here is that now I've got a team around me and I can use those strengths and we can build even better things because of how we work together. So for those of you that are thinking about what is my next move, I would say, or I would ask, what do you enjoy most about the job? And if you enjoy that day-to-day detail and being involved in, every little thing, then you might need a smaller system because that allows you to do that. But as you get to the larger system, you're not in the day-to-day nitty-gritty as much because you have to be at that higher level. I interact more with the board members. I interact, more on that community relationship type, how can we build a community? How can we do things with partnerships? That's more where you are in the larger district. So that would be my advice, is just ask yourself, what do you enjoy most about the job?
Great. Wise words. Well said.
Yeah.
Dr. Deidre Parish, thanks for being on Stories from the Field, the Superintendent podcast with me, and have a great school year and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe and follow IEI for more stories at ieik12.com/podcast.